is this wonderful illusion, this ever-burning flame that fills me with a strange confusion each time I hear your name.
That is Eartha Kitt, and that is also music from the series Furious, which we are about to talk about on the nose a little bit later on the nose. We'll talk about the fact that indisputably people are coming back to movie theaters. But what happens when they do come back? Have they forgotten how to be in movie theaters? And what is going to get them there? What enriches the experience? How much staying power does this idea have? I would imagine that we would discuss some of those things. And when I say we, I mean the nose. And when I say the nose, I mean Irene Papoulis, who taught writing for a long time at Trinity College and now is a writer. Lindsay Lee Wallace, writer, journalist, and whose latest work includes cover stories for the 4 most recent issues of Bat Conservation, International Bats magazine. And she actually has a book proposal out right now where she would live as a bat for 1 year. So if you're interested in crowdsourcing that or crowdfunding that, she'd be willing to entertain your financial offers. Bill Usman is a professor of media studies at Sacred Heart University. That's all that's happening with him. He's not living as a different kind of animal or anything like that. But we like him anyway, and we also probably all like Furious, a Hulu original crime drama thriller. And having even just said those words, I just want to say that subverts a lot of the conventions of crime drama thrillers. It's created by Elizabeth Meriwether, and it is the second series that the nose has covered. The first was The Dropout. I don't remember that, but I believe it. And it's also inspired by the 1987 feature film Black Widow, which is written by Ronald Bass. I think it's a Rafelson movie, though, right? I think it is, isn't it? Anyway, so we're going to play a little clip to get the conversation going. We should tell you that, the log line is that Furious follows FBI agent Alice Black on the hunt for a mysterious and calculating female. I'm not even going to read the log line. It's dumb. But what you're going to hear right now is a scene from episode 1. You're going to hear Quincy Tyler Bernstine, whom we are going to be talking about quite a bit as FBI agent Nora Washington, and then Emmy Rossum, who is, I think, arguably the star, the protagonist of the series, either that or one of 3, as FBI agent Alice Black. Here we go, A1.
Oh, you're the ex-cop. I heard you requested my squad. Why do you want to work down here? Why? Do you want to work in the basement on sex crimes and crimes against children? Do you hate yourself? Don't answer that. I got an idea. Why don't you go to white-collar crimes, meet your future husband?
I'm not here looking for a husband. I just need information about Adrian Murado. I found your 302 from 2010. You suspected him of trafficking girls. I think it's possible that one of the girls he trafficked might have killed him. Adrian Murado died of an overdose about a year ago, but the details of his death are similar to the recent homicide of Caleb Easton. Both victims have a girlfriend who no one had met, and both times the girlfriend disappeared.
So you think it's the girlfriend? And you think she's a serial killer? Oh, you're not going to make it out of your probationary period. We are FBI agents. We're not homicide detectives. Thanks for stopping by.
All right, here we go. So, Irene, I think you said when you were talking among yourselves here that you might not have watched this series if it didn't come with some kind of encouragement from somebody else.
Yes. When I watched the very beginning, the little clip they have before the credits, it looked like, oh no, a woman kills a man. It's a very, I've seen this show before, they're going to find her, they're going to catch her. And I sort of had that kind of stereotypical response to it. But but I had to watch it for the nose, so I kept going. And I'm so glad I did, because once we got underway, I realized there's so many levels of nuances in this show. It's unbelievable. And psychological explorations about all kinds of themes that maybe we could get into later. And I loved it. So.
Yeah, I mean, Lindsay, I think, first of all, never judge a book by its pre-title sequence. But this, one of the things I like about this, to me, it subverts a lot of the expectations that people have about police procedurals or crime drama thrillers or whatever you might want to call this. We see a lot of them. I haven't seen one that I could easily compare to this. I have some little ideas about comparing, but Lindsay, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you about that. I feel like because to me the first season of True Detective is like the first I don't like crime investigation, police procedural show that I really latched onto, and so it's the one that I put others next to. And then this one in particular, it's like similarly about like a vast conspiracy of child exploitation and sexual abuse, and it's like all ensnared within the agency supposedly investigating it, and you've got these like these nihilistic broken people in charge of that investigation, and all of those are sort of tropes, but they're also in this situation I feel like they bear out really effectively rather than just feeling cliche. And I feel like it sort of manages to be surprising because it's not like particularly fancy or flashy in the way it presents itself to you. Like, I feel like it's almost saying, like, look how mundane the maintenance of this evil is. Look at how administratively this is being carried out, how people are manipulating each other for like workplace concerns rather than because of like some vast wild cult or something like that. And that is kind of refreshing because in this moment in time, that does feel like how these things take place.
Yeah, I didn't know I was going to say this, Bill, but I actually think that maybe one of the precursors to this or the on-ramp or something is the entire career of Jodie Foster. If you think about it, Clarice Starling is one of the early female protagonists who flaws in her are being exploited by the criminals. It's also less clear at certain times, who is, Hannibal Lecter becomes quite helpful. That idea that, okay, there's bad guys and there's good guys and bad women and good women and then they don't have any, I think that's something that it starts with that. Jodie Foster, of course, did season 4 of True Detective, and right now has this very interesting French movie, which also subverts a lot of ideas about kind of Hitchcock thrillers. This French movie called A Private Life. But anyway, I think one of the things that they do is, and we're all used to the idea of the flawed law enforcement person. But there's some way in which this is being tweaked or played a little bit harder, and I think there are these 3 women. The protagonist Emmy Rossum, who's this cop turned new FBI agent, who's our Clarice Starling, but also this really broken down and wounded in a lot of ways supervisor Nora Washington, and then the murderer. But I'm babbling. You should be talking.
No, I think that's one of the things that's really great about the show. It really, of course, there's other characters, and maybe we'll talk about some of the other really good, smaller performances in this, but it's this triad that's so important. And one of the things that's so great about it is it's a triad of women. And I mean, this one passes the Bechdel test with flying colors, that idea that are there women who speak to each other not about men? And
do you get an exemption if you're speaking about killing the men?
You do. I think you get a special exception for that if the men really, really deserve it, which the men in this really deserve it, which brings up another thing, which is, and you alluded to this, it starts, Irene and I differed a little bit about whether we liked the beginning or not. I did. It starts by, really establishing that Catherine is a psychopath. Mostly because she likes candy corn, but that's a whole nother topic. But it starts there. But then I think it does sort of challenge that a little bit. Yes, Catherine does really, really kind of awful criminal acts, but it does make us kind of step back and think a little bit about whether she really is a psychopath or whether she is just enacting vengeance in this, really almost kind of like Greek tragedy kind of way. And then it complicates that even more by showing her actually being very, very kind to some other characters in the show. And so all of that, I think, just opens up, like Irene said, this really interesting psychological puzzle in addition to the crime.
Yeah.
So, but I think there's something that makes me a little uncomfortable about the idea that the good people have bad things and the bad people have good things. And so you can't, everything is kind of a big, it's like talking about politics, there's bad things about, when people say, oh, every side lies, you can't find the truth. Yes, you can. You can find the truth, and you can find the morality. And so I think one thing I like about this is that there's also, I don't know, it's going to be interesting to see how it ends up, but there's also morality. There's one guy that seems like almost, one character that seems almost, purely morally good, unlike the other ones, and I wonder how that's going to keep going. We're going to find out that there's another serial killer, and everybody just it's not just a flux where everyone is just muddling around in good and bad. I feel like there's some kind of moral sort of thing that the show is trying to explore, in spite of the fact, and then in spite of the nuances that there's that everyone is flawed.
Yeah, and there's 2 more episodes that haven't been released yet, so we'll know sort of more about the whole direction of that soon, right?
I'm not sure that I agree with you about that idea. I think, when people say stuff like what you just said, I often will say, you understand that Juanita Broderick checks more of the basic credibility boxes of a rape accuser than Christine Blasey Ford does. That if you're going to be really appalled by this kind of stuff, you should understand that in 2016, we were offered the chance to have a probable rapist, or a person with as good a chance of being a rapist as Brett Kavanaugh in the White House as first husband. That I actually think that there's a lot of bad that goes in a lot of places. And then we also, I have political opinions, I favor Democrats over Republicans most of the time. But the idea that, that Ted Kennedy was a really good guy.
No, absolutely not. No, I don't. I definitely wasn't saying that the good side is only good, because the good side is never only good. But there's, you as a viewer or as a person paying attention can try to sift, can say something like, well, Juanita Broderick is more, credible than Christine Blasey Ford. Okay, then that's part of the discussion. Yeah. It's not as though, you can't lump everyone together at all, and that's why people say, oh, everyone has the same side. So I just wouldn't want to go all the way to say it doesn't matter. The more you know and the more you investigate, the more you can. And I
think this series is doing that really well.
Yes, exactly.
The show complicating all that is what makes it so interesting and different.
I want to bring Lindsay into this. Did you? Yeah, go ahead. Say whatever you were going to say.
I think part of what makes it so effective is that it, like Catherine, the serial killer character, has what appears to be a really simple and airtight code for how she makes decisions, which is like, despite the external trappings of being either, progressive or conservative or kind or hateful, she thinks that anyone deserves to die who takes advantage of somebody else, specifically sexually, it seems like. And she enacts that moral code on the other characters in the show, regardless of whether they are evil billionaires or they have like a trans women belong in sports sticker on their laptop, as one character does. And I think that is like, it's one of the things about the show that is kind of refreshing, because there are a lot of like co-optations of an external presentation of progressiveness that substitutes for actually meaningful morals. And this is a show where you can't get away with being a really nice person who is going to take advantage of somebody else. And you also are not like, as the serial killer character, we're not necessarily supposed to directly agree with every decision she makes, but her code, I think, is really clear. And I think that's interesting.
See, I differ with you. We should, I don't think we've said this. Catherine is a very, very young woman who has been sexually trafficked. She's played by Lola Petticrew. A lot of people saw her in Say Nothing. And now she is on this quest, and she's got a list. She has a little list of people who need to be killed, and they're all men. But there are other people who are killed along the way. And I saw in the notes some of your thoughts about this, Lindsay. And I don't want to say too much, and I don't want to, spoil anything. There is a woman whom she kills, who I saw that differently than you did. She recruits that woman. She needs some stuff. She needs supplies. She needs wigs. She needs a phone. She needs stuff. She recruits that woman. She figures out that woman has a weak spot that might be a sexual attraction to her, which she exploits. My take on that woman was, if just left to her own devices and not manipulated at all, she wouldn't have done anything like that. That Catherine needed her to become that. Catherine turned her into a sinner and then punished her for being a sinner.
But I mean, like, there's a lot of research that shows that if you are a person who has been sexually abused or exploited, that you might be more likely to act out in, ways that try to pull other people into that pattern with you because it's something that you are used to. So if that character, who I don't know how far we're going with spoilers potentially, but who works at a shelter for domestically abused, sexually abused women who are in the most vulnerable possible state, is able to see herself and then actually carry out, like, sleeping with one of the people staying there, I think that's a moral flaw on her part. She shouldn't have that job. She shouldn't be in that line of work. Like, I think that she is pretty likely to be potentially propositioned by people in that environment who see that as the only avenue that they have for getting what they want. And ultimately, she still has power over them. And I think it's an exploitative position to be in. And so to me, Catherine making that choice about that character is saying, like, you were supposed to be a safe person for me, and all it took was me, like, letting my towel slip a little bit after the shower, and then you want to have sex with me just like everyone else.
Yeah. So I should say also, I think one of the strengths of this series, Bill, is that you could have a conversation like this about 20 different things in this, because there's a lot of ambiguity, and there's a lot of questions about moral agency and stuff like that. And Catherine's at the center of a lot of it because this is also a tremendous performance. I mean, there really are three incredible performances by these three women leads. This one's a little flashier because she's really kind of dipping in and out of personalities. And I think it's also kind of less clear where her real personality is located. There are times in which she turns into a little girl, the little girl that she never got to be, and that little girl doesn't have the capability of making sophisticated moral judgments either. So I don't know. I'm finding that also very interesting.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on what was that show about the woman who fooled all of these men to get them to, like, invest in her.
That was the other movie made by the woman
The
who made this
Dropout?
one. The Dropout.
The Dropout. Okay, that's what The Dropout is.
I mean,
yeah. Elizabeth Holmes,
Also from Elizabeth Meriwether.
I drew a blank on that,
Yeah.
but I was thinking about that woman while watching this, and I probably should confess, I find Catherine, like, really appealing. Like, I love Catherine's character, and I know I'm not supposed to, maybe, or am I? And that's what's so interesting about the show, is that both the writing and the performances make you have to sort of almost question how you yourself are reacting to it.
Yeah, and that's not that uncommon. But I mean, Hannibal Lecter is by far the most interesting and appealing person in Silence of the Lambs. He's also a monster. But there's that kind of John Milton sense. The devil always has the best lines. This, I think, is more than that. I think it has more granularity than that.
I agree. Though I did want, think. It's really a show about manipulation too, and that's what sex work is. You get someone to think that things that you don't actually think, that you think things that you don't actually think, and so it's kind of exploring the idea of how far, how much responsibility does the manipulator have, and how, I don't know, and I don't. I am interested in that as a because we all manipulate each other in some ways, but where is the the floor, and it's interesting, and I think we have to talk. We have to just mention Epstein.
Oh well, I was about to, but thank you for doing. Yeah. So I want to. So say something.
I mean,
get us
it's
going.
In this age. There's a photograph that looks like it could be right out of the Epstein files. Like, did we already see that photograph in another way? And so it's sort of exploring the idea of who gets punished, who punishes, who gets away with things. Who doesn't, and also just the people with a lot of power and influence and money and all that stuff, how vulnerable how I want to say evil they are to exploit these women. It's just and so you can't watch this show without cringing to think about all those men that are still not getting any consequences of what they did.
Yeah, I don't know. You want to elaborate on that, Lindsay? Bill, I have something to say too, but I can wait.
I mean, I agree completely. I think that you can't watch it without thinking about current events. And I also think that it's very I it like we're talking about Catherine as a character who it's like, oh, are we supposed to love her? Are we not supposed to love her? And like the reality is that I think that she's very carefully and lovingly depicted as a person whose actions are justified by what's happened to her. And like narratively, we really like vigilante justice. And we, if like it aligns with our personal morals, then it's something that we're happy to cheer for in a fictional context. And it's almost uncanny to watch something that aligns so closely with something that is happening right now and to know that audiences are going to say this is a righteous portrayal of female rage and this is like all I can see these men have, you know, they're getting what's coming to them, and then to like flip the channel over to the news and like these men are not getting what's coming to them.
Yeah. I mean, what I was going to say when you said that we like vigilante justice, I think one of the reasons people do find themselves sort of reacting emotionally in a positive way to vigilante justice. Just think about, you know, the guy who killed that health insurance CEO and the way people reacted to that, partially because he was good looking, which is also part of this whole thing. But
and also because United Healthcare is responsible for hundreds of thousands of deaths.
So the reason we find ourselves attracted to vigilante justice is because we feel like we're not getting justice from those who are supposed to be providing it, those who are charged with it. And so it makes us turn to what are actually really criminal acts and not see them as criminal because of the absence of that larger form of justice in our society.
Yeah, you know, one thing that I've thought a lot about Jeffrey Epstein while watching this thing too. But one of the ways that I thought about this, and please don't interpret this as me making excuses for anybody because I'm not. But I was there was a conversation between Ezra Klein and Anand Giradharas, who's written some of the really interesting journalism about the whole Epstein culture. And one of the things that I came away from that thinking is it's kind of a continuum, right? I mean, Epstein was a sort of enabler and helper to all kinds of people. And sometimes he got you a girl, and sometimes he got you something really nice for lunch that nobody else knew that you liked, you know, and that there's this class of very rich, fast money, entitled people who many of them came into huge amounts of wealth without ever really developing moral codes, or, you know, they spent a lot of time just pushing actual computer code around instead and didn't develop moral codes and can fall into all kinds of things. And to me, there isn't like Jeffrey Epstein and 40, you know, sex offenders or 100 sex offenders or whatever we think it is. It's this whole group of people who don't have any moral standards or have very few moral standards and can be, you know, offered all kinds of things and not know enough or feel enough to be able to turn them down. And I think that's why I think one of the really important performances in this thing is Rob Delaney, who plays that guy, you know, who is horrible. His reaction to, you know, to hearing that he's done something horrible is insufficient. His reaction to just having sex with this young woman is to make her sign an NDA. But I don't know, we don't entirely lose track of the human being there. Delaney somehow or other, you know, manages to sort of keep a human in view, like a guy who's just doing really, really bad things, but not Hannibal Lecter, not an unrecognizable monster.
Because he really doesn't get it.
Yeah.
You know, he's just really thinking, as you said, my needs are to be fulfilled, and I have these needs, and what's wrong with that? And I should get them, without any capacity to think about the people around him and their needs. You know, it's sort of like the opposite of empathy. Even though he's a nice guy, he seems like a nice guy, a successful guy. He knows how to manipulate the world, but he has no concern. I mean, as so many people in our, ruling class don't have that concern for other people. You know, there's other people around you.
And like not like a lot of, yes, the ruling class for sure, but a lot of us, it's like the DoorDash, you know, of relationships. Okay, you've brought me what I needed, and now be on your way, and I'm never going to think about you again.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at these people, Lindsay, the people that I'm really sort of seeing in the world right now, it almost seems as though the Roy family from Succession, they're kind of a success story, you know? They're kind of well-adjusted. It's mainly about money and drugs, and yeah, once in a while you get a little Chappaquiddick thing over in England or something. But, you know, I mean, compared to these other people who have too much money, too fast, and no value set, the Roys actually look pretty good. But go ahead.
I mean, I'm not sure if the speed with which the money's been accrued is directly related to how morally the money is handled, considering, I don't know if you look at some of the behavior of people who have had money for a long time is, I guess, not significantly better, in my opinion. But I do think that, to go back to, Irene, what you were saying about the behavior of both this man who is having sex with Catherine, and then also to go back to Quincy Tyler Bernstine's character Nora, who is, when we first meet her, appears to be a crusader for justice, and then after a certain point realizes that she's compromised and that her ability to pursue justice might not be in line with self-preservation. I feel overall the show is reminding us about the maintenance of evil doesn't require everyone involved to be an evil person. Most people doing bad things are not cackling about it. And Colin, to what you were saying, most of the people who are saying, oh, I'd love to go to an island. I'd love to have something that nobody else can have. Surely the moral crimes I've committed to accumulate the amount of money that I have must entitle me to something that nobody else can get. And ultimately that thing is going to be another person's safety, apparently. But very rarely is anyone involved in that kind of behavior. Somebody who's I love to be evil. It's I had a difficult childhood and that's why I need to abuse people.
Yeah, only Spider-Man villains wake up and say, I want to be evil today.
We're in Hannah Arendt territory here, right?
We are.
Yeah.
So
unfortunately, we have to stop. Although we could talk for the entire... This is a series that you should talk about with other people. I mean, I think it cries out for that in multiple... I also just quickly want to say, there are a lot of little performances and even some big performances here. They got a lot of actors that you just don't... I have never seen Quincy Tyler Bernstine in my life before, and she's just killing it up there.
So good.
And even Becky, who's the shelter worker that we were kind of talking about, that woman has done almost nothing. She was in Saturday Night Live for a cup of coffee or something.
And the lawyer's son.
Yeah.
And Steve Way is great.
Oh, we didn't get to Steve Way. Oh, Steve Way's a whole other conversation. All right. Unfortunately, we're out of time. We have to talk about something else in the next segment.
Show. Have you seen her? Tell me, have you seen her? Oh, I hear her voice as the cold winds blow in the sweet music on my radio. Have you seen her? Tell me, have you seen her? Died. She said, bye-bye, baby, bye-bye. I said, where you going? I'm just born. She said, I'll only be gone for a while. My mother loved to leave in style. That's why God made the movie.
And got me to the movies, and then we went to the movies. And then we stopped going to the movies. Some of it was a gradual withdrawal as home theaters became better. And then there was a very sharp cutoff during COVID. And then we've been wondering for a long time if that industry could survive, the industry where people go and watch movies on screens with other people. Well, thanks to a number of new factors, including what I trademark call Spidacy, which is Spider-Man and the Odyssey, very similar to Barbenheimer. People are back in the movie theaters, but they've been getting back to the movies anyway. It just seems to be a thing that's happening. Some of it, I think, is Lindsay's generation has just got a whole different set of relationships with the movies. I should reintroduce you too. Irene Papoulis is with us, Lindsay Lee Wallace, Bill Usman. So, Irene, I don't know, maybe you can get us started here. I mean, there is something wonderful. You taught at Trinity all those years. There was always something kind of wonderful about going to a movie in that Cinestudio theater and having other people there, and maybe you walk out into the lobby afterwards, you see somebody you know, you talk to them about the movie you just saw. I mean, being an audience is more complicated than just sitting there putting your eyeballs on a screen.
Absolutely. 100%. And I think we need to go to the movies. It's just a cultural need that movies fulfill, and that we can't fulfill as in the same way in our living rooms. We just can't. So,
Bill, we're saving Lindsay for last, but Bill,
okay.
you're in the groove now. You've already got like going to the movie plans for the rest of the year, even to a certain degree.
Yeah, there are certain movies that are just gonna, I'm gonna want to see them on a big old screen with really good sound, and that I don't want to have to wait for however long it would take to stream it. So, maybe not the most intellectually highfalutin, but I'll go see Avengers Doomsday in a theater when it comes out for sure. And, I went to see the Odyssey even before I knew we were going to talk about it on the nose. I went to see Disclosure Day in a theater because these were movies that I both didn't want to have to wait to see and that I really wanted to see in a theater experience.
But you wouldn't feel the same way about a small, quote unquote, psychological drama?
I think it would depend upon, for me, it's often about directors more than performers or the source material. If it was source material that I knew about and was really, really into, or a director, then I would have that impulse, I've got to get to see this instead of waiting for it.
So I want to go over to Lindsay here. I will say, I think they've done a great job with the Odyssey of selling the audience that maybe didn't really think about it that much on the idea that IMAX and things like that are really kind of special and worth it. And I think more people now think that than did before. But I feel like in the boroughs around Manhattan, there's just a thing like movies. It's a hang. Why wouldn't you go to the movies?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I don't know if it's just the people that I know or if I can say it about like my generational cohort or whatever, but everyone that I know really likes going to the movies. Like people have their AMC A-list membership as like a brag in their like dating app profile. My friend Colin, if you can hear me, I promise I'll get A-list every time that we hang out. It's like, do you want to go to the movies? Do you have A-list yet? It's really embarrassing that you don't have A-list yet. So there's evangelizing happening on this front, if that makes you guys feel better.
It does.
And I like going to the movies. My main barrier about it is just that it's become extremely expensive to go to the movies. I would do it much more frequently if it didn't cost like $30 all told.
Yeah, I mean, the expense is there too. But I think the other thing that some of us are noticing, and I will say that when I went to see the Odyssey, there was a woman literally just talking on her cell phone. And I went over to her and I said, could you please stop doing that? And she said, I'll be off in a minute. And I said, well, no, I said, you're at the movies.
Unbelievable.
I was like, yes, you're at the movies. And she said, buzz off, buddy, which I thought for her generation was like something that I didn't think people said. But Irene, we're seeing this. People think it's okay to look at their screens, or people talk, whatever. Thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, in a way, it was always like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we used to have more shame. People used to have more shame. When somebody would talk before there were phones, the whole audience would say, shh, really loud. And they would usually stop talking, But now, first of all, people don't feel comfortable yelling out, be quiet, or something like that. People are much more, okay.
I do.
Well, because,
I'm
all right.
happy to.
There are some exceptions.
There's some gender issues.
There's some exceptions.
Maybe.
But I do think it does seem like people are a little more reluctant to really call people. I don't know. Maybe it's only the people I've seen, but even when, it's more like they're more likely to complain to the person next to them than they are to sort of actually do what Colin did and go up to the person and say, "Will you please stop talking?" But I don't know. That is a negative. So that's why it's full theaters.
Bill, I do think that during this withdrawal from movies and during COVID, we all or a lot of us turned into kind of Howard Hughes, sitting there in his private screening room, letting his fingernails and hair grow, and we're just like it's just us and the screen and and I think some of us, as we went back to the movies, thought, oh, no, I have to sort of now accommodate other people. Other people are just like, they're just taking their whole Howard Hughes act and
they think they're still at home.
They're plopping it down in a seat at a multiplex. But your thoughts?
I'm still laughing at Buzz Off, buddy.
Yeah.
I really like that. I'm going to try to use that whenever I can. But so I'm someone who has been annoyed at people in movie theaters for longer than Lindsay's been alive. It's not. Lindsay may have said this already. It's not an entirely new phenomena for people to be ill-behaved in the movies, but I do think there's something about our multi-screen culture that encourages that as well. Because, a lot of times when people are watching at home, they are on multiple screens. They're doing other stuff at the same time. And we can lose sight of the fact that you have to behave differently in a public space than you do in your own little tiny cave. And I do think there's something about the technologies that have become so much a part of our world that is amplifying this and making it a little worse. And by the way, as a professor, I deal with the same issue in the classroom as you guys are talking about in movie theaters.
And I also wonder, Lindsay, whether there's sort of a collective making sense out of life that goes on. I mean, even like, Gen Z and young millennials really like horror movies. We did a whole episode about Obsession and Backrooms recently. And I mean, I could sort of see going to that if I were young with my friends. And then afterwards going out and going, well, yeah, people do get weird after trivia night sometimes, or what that horror, I think, is being experienced by Gen Z in a much more sort of collective and comfortable way. Like, I'm with my friends and this horrible stuff is happening up on the screen, and then we're going to go talk about it.
Yeah, I think
we can clutch each other during the movie, right?
There's a memory that I treasure of going to see the horror movie Mama when I was in high school with a few of my friends, and we were all like, screaming and then giggling with relief after screaming about how we were not actually in danger. And, like the great thing about seeing a horror movie. And then a man who was sitting in front of us turned around and went, "You won't be laughing when you wake up and that thing is in your bed." And like, wow, okay, sir.
And that man was Christopher Nolan, too.
You need Catherine on your side during that moment. Catherine,
exactly.
Get this guy.
Yeah,
that man was Christopher Nolan, and that's why I still haven't seen the Odyssey, even though I love going to the movies. Yeah. But I think that one of the things, Irene, to what you were saying about like people feel more comfortable talking in movies and stuff. One of the reasons I like seeing horror movies in the theaters is that I feel like there's kind of a social contract that up to a point everyone is talking, but in a way that is very like collectively in reaction to what's going on and demonstrates engagement. No one is like chatting about other stuff. Everyone is like, don't go in there.
Don't go in that room. Are you nuts?
You won't be laughing when you wake up, and et cetera, et cetera. And it's like it's agreed upon as a collective catharsis. Yeah. And like, as a person who has fears and anxiety, which makes me so different from everyone else in the world, it's like really satisfying to engage on purpose with something that takes you through being afraid and then lets you experience catharsis in a controlled way. So I think horror has a very special place in theaters. Like, I would go to see a horror movie because I wanted to see a horror movie and be like, what's even playing? Rather than like, there's one coming up that I especially want to see.
And there might be a parallel to comedy.
I was just going to say that same exact thing.
A whole bunch of people laughing at the same time.
Totally.
Right?
Or even being sad and being quiet and being moved. Yeah. It's an audience experience. Yeah.
I do want to say that the other thing that's gone, I'm looking at Irene because we're the same age, is there used to be like you'd buy your ticket from a person and then you take your ticket over to another person who was like 10 yards away, but would tear the ticket anyway. Okay, now you can come in. But you would talk to those people or you would interact with those people. I don't know if you've had the experience now of buying your ticket putting your ticket on your phone. And I can't find anybody who even wants to acknowledge that I have a ticket.
I was so surprised by that when I went to see the Odyssey. We just went walking in.
Yeah, and I would go up to like somebody with the popcorn and I'd say, "Do you want to scan?" And they go, "No, don't scan. I'm going to just go. It's theater 13. Get out of here. Go away. Leave me alone."
And you have a seat, so somebody could conceivably say, "Oh no, I'm in that in 5B," but they don't. But they almost never do because there aren't that many people in the theater. But the other thing that I saw when I went to the Odyssey at the IMAX was the popcorn, the AI popcorn. Like you don't ask someone for popcorn. You just put something in your phone and then you go up to the popcorn machine, get the thing and press the button. There were no people, and they even had that with wine and beer.
This is like what we talked about last week.
Me.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
If I download an app to eat popcorn, then I'm not going to eat popcorn anymore. That makes me so angry.
Yeah, there's a lot to make you angry. And I do think, I'll just quickly say, one thing I think would be a good idea, like there have been a couple of movies that I've seen recently where, like at the beginning, one or more members of the cast comes on the screen and says, "Thank you for coming back to the movie theaters. Thank you for being here." But I think also saying, "But remember, you're with other people." And so, and maybe if Tom Cruise or, let's pick somebody they trust, but let's say Tom Hanks says that. Maybe people will go, "Okay, yeah, I guess maybe there are other people here and I shouldn't disturb them." I'd like to try some experiments like that. We need to retrain people a little bit. But anyway, we're going to take a quick break. They've got things to recommend to you. Oh, and I should tell you one other thing before we go to the music. So our newsletter, which is coming out this weekend, which you can subscribe to at ctpublic.org/Colin, will continue this discussion about life in the movie theaters.
And see a movie. Let's go out to dinner and see a movie. Let's go out to dinner and see a movie. Let's go out to dinner and see a movie. Let's go out to dinner and see a movie. Let's go out to dinner and see a movie.
And we are back. It's time to say some thank yous, starting with the maestro, Dylan Reyes, our technical producer, Jonathan McPants, produced this show. Robin Doyen Aiken has been guiding us through this week with her beneficent shepherd-like, her shepherd's crook. That doesn't sound right. I should plan these things a little bit. Also, Lily Tyson Quality Entertainment Productions. Yes, happy birthday to Lily Tyson Quality Entertainment Productions.
Happy birthday.
So anyway, now we are going to make some recommendations. And Irene Papoulis, why don't you get us going?
Okay. Well, I have to recommend Unbelievable, which is another story of two women trying to solve a crime against women with Toni Collette and Merritt Weaver, who is such a great underexposed actress, I think, Merritt Weaver. And so I recommend that. It's on Netflix. But I also want to recommend Black Widow. Like, I went to see it. I had time this week, so I actually paid the $4 to rent it. And I remembered it as very differently from the way I saw it now. Now it seemed first of all, it was so much fun to see Deborah Winger with her 80s hair, and Teresa Russell, who's so sultry. She's not necessarily the best actress, but she's so good. And it's very kind of campy. They go to Hawaii. It's kind of a fun, and it's interesting to think about how this movie, the show Furious, is kind of a re-seeing in some way of that movie. So I recommend Black Widow.
Yeah. Those are both really great recommendations. All right. We should say I think we did a whole nose on Unbelievable.
I was thinking maybe we did.
We did, yeah.
Yeah.
And is it Caitlin Devers? Is the name of the young woman who's the...
Yeah.
Other
terrific.
person.
She's terrific. All right. How about you, Lizzie? What are you going to recommend to us?
Definitely seconding Unbelievable. It's so good. Everyone is so good. And then going back to, I guess, the first season of True Detective, because I was talking about that before, and we're talking about crime shows, and I think it goes really well with both Unbelievable and Furious, and that also both Unbelievable and Furious are necessary updates on what is a show that is just sort of like, look how upsetting it is for these two men to think about women being exploited. And then Also, on like a completely unrelated note, I'm reading this book right now, Get It Out on the Politics of Hysterectomy by Andrea Becker, and it's very interesting. And it's like a medical sociological perspective on hysterectomy. So really interesting book. Recommend that as well.
All right. Bill Usman, how about you?
One of the things about Furious is that despite the grim narrative, there's some really, really funny moments in it. And so the show I'm going to recommend also has that commonality. It's a new HBO series called DTF St. Louis, starring Jason Bateman, Linda Cardellini, and David Harbour. It got 13 Emmy nominations, and I actually think it really deserves it. It's a great cast and an intriguing plot. It's not really, it's only marginally about a hookup app. It's actually really about loneliness and self-doubt, marital and economic problems. I know that maybe listing all that is maybe not selling it very well, but I actually think it's really, really good. And it's visually very, very interesting. The visual aesthetics of it, I find, are really compelling, and I'm fascinated by that they put that much attention into that aspect of it.
All right, great recommendation as well. I will quickly recommend that if you are a registered Democrat in Connecticut, that you vote in the primaries on Tuesday. It's important. I'm going to, I don't usually recommend things like this, but I'm going to recommend sort of a piece of hardware. Not like a Betsy Kaplan piece of hardware where it's like something that roots around in your toilet or something, but, you know, I had the experience of just letting all the CD players in my life just die, or I have like these Bose machines that just died, you know, and then it became this kind of fallen civilization. I still own some CDs, but more than that, people hand me CDs a lot, particularly when they're hanging around with jazz musicians, they hand you their CD. And so I actually found this product. The brand is spelled Syitren. I don't even know how to say it. Syitren? No, I'm going to say that. And for about $100, you get this very nice looking little thing it's a square not bigger than a CD, but you can Bluetooth it with anything that you want, and it has just turned things around for me. Just to have a CD player that's really reliable and it doesn't take up a lot of space, and it looks kind of nice, and so I'm popping all my Nicole Zaritis CDs. Whenever I run Nicole Zaritis, I get another CD. So you have to sort of pop those in. You got to be able to listen to them, and I'm enjoying that, and I'm realizing that I've been listening to just one track of everybody's music on a playlist for a really long time. So,
honey, if you're listening, I'm going to buy one of those right now.
I'm going to like buy them, for like 5 people for Christmas or something. I mean, really, I'm just very, very happy about this thing. Anyway, very, very happy also about this nose. I think we all really hope that you will watch Furious. We might have made it seem a little scary or off-putting or something like that, but it really just has a lot of interesting things going on. And these performances by these 3 women are just spectacularly interesting. And for once, it's a thing that doesn't tell you what to think about things. It really is inviting you to come to some of your own conclusions about that. So anyway, thanks so much to Lindsay Lee Wallace, who, although she has anxieties, she's also going to turn into a bat for a year. So, and that makes us anxious. We're a little frightened. We don't know how we're going to get through that period.
Donate to my GoFundMe.
That's right. Absolutely. Bill Usman is not planning to turn into a bat. He'll just remain an angry Celtics fan. Irene Papoulis will just continue to be a wonderful, thoughtful, interesting conversationalist. Are you planning to turn on into any particular kind of animal?
Not yet.
Okay. Let us know. Keep us posted. We thank you very much for listening. Here's Grayson Hugh with our final words here, musically speaking.
Waterberry, Oliveberry, Woodberry, hitting on New Britain, Vernon, I already said that one, Avon, Farmington, yeah. On the radio.